So I've got another pressing comparison for you today, and we're going to be looking at a great gem out of Canada, and there's definitely something magical in the water when it comes to Canadian technical death metal, because we're talking about the birthplace of Cryptopsy and Gorguts and Augury and Unhuman, Quo Vadis, plenty of others. And so let's go back to 2001 and look at the debut album by Atheretic, which has recently been reissued. Atheretic are a brutal technical death metal band that formed in 1991, and they were originally called Brain Dead, but then they changed their name to Satanized in 1994, and then changed their name finally to Atheretic in 1999. Adhesion, Aversion is their debut full-length, which was put out on CD by Canadian label Neoblast Records in 2001. Neoblast put out a few others I adore, including Disembarkation's Rancorous Observation, the early material by Neuraxis, and Spasmy's Deep Inside, which was later reissued by my label Sewer Rot Records. Neoblast has since closed. Atheretic put out a second album, Apocalyptic Nature Fury, in 2006 through Canadian label Gailey Records. After plenty of demand, Atheretic's debut was finally reissued by Canada's Melogy Musicraft in 2025 on both CD and vinyl. Melogy described themselves as a subscription-based label that also does screen printing and embroidery. So how did they do? How is the reissue? The first thing I'll point out is that the packaging is drastically different. The 2001 original press was a jewel case CD, so it had a tray card and an insert. The 2025 reissue comes in a cardboard sleeve. I pre-ordered this reissue as soon as I heard about it, and I didn't realize it came in a cardboard sleeve until I pulled it out of the mailer. Here's a dramatic reenactment. Oh, the Atheretic reissue arrived. Can't wait to see what this looks like. So I'm really disappointed by the cardboard sleeve. This is the cheapest way to release a CD. With a reissue, I want to see the approach that John Hammond proclaimed.
Really spectacular, spared no expense.
But as you'll find out, this reissue feels like corners were cut that really shouldn't have been cut, not unlike the behavior of John Hammond in Jurassic Park. Before I get further into that, let's look at the differences in the cover, which was painted by Alexandre Fata. I believe the only other cover he did was the 2000 album Grossly Unfair by Canadian brutal death grind band Traumatism. The original Neoblast press was more orange and pink. I actually like the redder coloring of the reissue quite a bit. The black logo has been replaced by a transparent logo with a more legible font typed over the logo, and then it was moved to the other side of the cover. The original logo wasn't that difficult to read, so I don't think that was really necessary, but it still looks alright. I'm okay with the different placement of the logo too, as it gives the artwork more space to shine. The cropping of the cover is different. The new cover has part of the top artwork cropped out, but this is in exchange for more of the artwork on the bottom being visible. I do find the bottom part that is now visible more striking. There are some awesome details there, so I do like the new cropping, but I can't help but wonder if there might have been a way to get more of the artwork in there without any cropping. Mostly, I like the new cover. The back of each doesn't have anything too notable. The original tray card back is striking with strong contrast. The image on the back took a portion of the cover art and then mirrored it. This is often a way to make a layout a little more dynamic without having to just copy the artwork or zoom in on specific parts for the rest of the layout, as long as the original cover artist is okay with that. The back of the reissue is a lot busier, and that's because it has to be. There isn't any kind of insert or anything additional, so all of the recording information, the track list and rights information have to be crammed onto this little space. It also uses a mirrored version of part of the cover here too. Now let's look at the discs. I love the charming pink of the original disc. It's unusual and it has a nice shimmer. So the reissue disc, it gets the job done. It's more clearly printed on there as more of a decal, so it doesn't have any kind of nice shimmer showing through from the disc. I do have one huge complaint about the reissue CD. So the original press is a replicated CD, whereas the reissue is a duplicated CD. If you're not familiar with this jargon, the original CD is a factory-pressed compact disc molded from a glass master. This is the best quality you can get, and it will last the longest, which is about 100 years. This is what you get when you buy a commercial compact disc from a store. But for the reissue, the CD is a CDR. It is data burned onto a CDR. When this is done by a factory, these can still last a long time, but they don't last as long as a replicated CD, and they're not compatible with every CD player. And when a CDR isn't pressed by a factory and instead uses more of a DIY approach at home, then the data may only last about 10 to 20 years. This is one of my biggest complaints about a lot of the CDs that were put around 2000 is if the band made them themselves, a lot of those can't be read at all anymore. So that music, if it's not already online in a digital format, it can be lost forever. I have a big issue with this, and this was clearly an area where corners were cut because replication costs significantly more than duplication. This is just so disappointing because when you reissue an album, you want it to be as good as, if not better, than the original press. So cutting corners and pressing this fantastic album on a CDR is really disappointing, and it feels like a real missed opportunity. This decision is objectively worse. But there are some other important aspects we still need to talk about, including the one way where the reissue is clearly superior. Before we get to that, let's look at the rest of the layout. Here the original press clearly has an advantage. It had a full color tray card, which is just a zoom in of part of the cover. Where the biggest discrepancy comes is with the insert. The original press had a gorgeous 8-panel fold-out insert with a band photo, recording information, all the lyrics, and you could even use one side as a fold-out poster of the band logo. The reissue, though, has no insert whatsoever, which is the standard for a cardboard sleeve pressing, but it means that the reissue has no lyrics and it has no band photo. The reissue pales in comparison to the original press in this regard, and at this point the reissue barely has any advantages over even a digital version of the album since the lyrics and band photos are gone. However, and this is a big however, the audio on the reissue has been remastered. The original pressing had a notoriously thin sound. There was even an early mix that was far superior that wasn't used for the CD for whatever reason, so somehow the sound on the original CD ended up being terrible. Now let's talk about the sound of the reissue. The 2025 remaster sound is incredible. This is how the album was meant to sound. It sounds crushing now. It sounds like how brutal death metal should sound. This is the one major reason why I'd say not to completely write off this reissue. The sound is superior by far. This is the correct way to listen to this album. So this reissue is a really mixed bag. So a reissue is a great opportunity to try to take what was done with the original and try to make it the most comprehensive version of an album ever. You want to elevate it. You want to make it so good that even somebody that owns the original will say, hey, I want to go get that reissue too. So what are some ways we could do that? Well, we could expand on the layout. We could maybe include a biography. We could include additional artwork. We could include some band photos from that classic era that haven't been seen. It's cool to see that stuff. Or we could maybe add a demo, a promo as bonus tracks. You could add the classic flyers. So it's really cool to be able to see, okay, what kind of bands did they play with? They're coming out of the Canadian scene. They probably played a lot of sick shows, and it'd be cool to see those flyers just to get a little more about their history, who they played with, and what the scene looked like during the era when this album came out. But that's not what we have. So we see the opposite kind of approach. So there are some steps up that they took. So I dig the new cover. The new sound is incredible. The sound is so good on the reissue that there's no reason I would ever go back and listen to this much thinner, much worse sounding version of the album. But the layout is just far inferior on this reissue. So we've lost the lyrics altogether. And I'm somebody that actually hopes that bands are writing lyrics, writing something meaningful. I want to read those. I want to know what those are about. And those are not included here. The band photo's gone. Everything is just really reduced and just compacted because it's a cardboard sleeve. What else can you do with this? And so I'm not thrilled about that decision, but I hope maybe eventually they can do a third pressing that takes this version, maybe a great jewel case version, maybe elevates it further. I love the charm of that fold-out poster too. There's something special about that we don't see as much nowadays. But let's put that remastered audio on there. Maybe add on those bonus tracks from the 1999 promo demo, and then really we'll be cooking with that. That would be an awesome way to bring the album back out, and that promo has never been on CD. So just doing that alone would make me, as somebody that wants to collect and have this music in a physical form, that'd be enough for me to buy it. In the meantime, yeah, should you pick up this reissue? The sound's good. It probably is a Pro CDR, so it probably will last a pretty good while. But it's just frustrating that in terms of layout, the old one is far superior. So those are my thoughts. You can let me know in the comments what you think. Are there other pressing comparisons you'd like me to do? Let me know, and I can see if I can make that happen. But other than that, like, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Keep it brutal. Until then.